Now, the Academic Staff Union of Universities has raised an alarm that most departments and units in public universities in the country are short-staffed due to the resignation of lecturers in search of greener pastures. Now, this is just as the union said that poor and delayed salaries, unpaid allowances, poor infrastructure, lack of respect for the academic community, and the seeming dwindling hope are some of the factors responsible for the resignation of lecturers in the past few months. The chairman, University of Ibadan chapter of ASU, that's Professor Dayo Akinwole, while speaking with journalists in Ibadan, lamented that public universities are in a very pitiable condition, with stress and frustration visible on the faces of poorly remunerated lecturers. Now, according to Akinwole, except President Bola Tinubu arrests the situation by reviewing the conditions of service in terms of salaries and allowances and improves infrastructure, many good hands will continue to resign and leave the country. Well, Arise News analyst Dayo Sobowale joins us now to discuss the lamentation of ASU on the mass resignation of lecturers in public varsities, the effects on the quality of education received by students, and how to stem the tide. Good afternoon, warm welcome to you on this day, as always. Right, let's get straight into it, Mr. Sobowale. Is our sympathy towards ASU beginning to dwindle?
To do what?
Towards our sympathy towards ASU, is it beginning to dwindle, or are we still feeling a deep sense of sympathy towards ASU and its causes?
I don't know those who have sympathy for ASU. I don't. But let us face the issue on the ground. ASU has raised some legitimate concerns, you get me, about its welfare, which government should address, and which I think government has been addressing, but which has been so over-industrialized in terms of aggressive collective bargaining on the part of ASU, that collective bargaining is one of the grounds, which it has not stated, why lecturers are moving away from Nigeria. People always lament when people leave their country, but if they are going to seek greener pastures, you should wish them luck. No condition is permanent. No condition is permanent. And if human beings are always looking for greener pastures. But it should not be scourged that policy that we have passed, the grass will not grow again, which seems to be the policy of ASU in terms of industrial relations. Look at the university, look at the plight of our students. Only those whose parents are rich enough and can afford dollars go overseas to study. And then they come back, they meet their mates in the Nigerian universities, still struggling to finish a 3-year course in 5 years, 5-year course in 8 years, because of ASU industrial action. So charity should begin at home. ASU should look after its own type of leadership in the university community and the way it deals with government. Atahiri Jega, the former INEC chairman, wrote something in this day, today, and cited problems similar to the complaints of ASU. But he, as a professor who was there, mentioned some things, that the problem of tertiary institutions in Nigeria center around low funding. That according to UNESCO, 25% of a budget, you get me, should be allocated to education. We have never met that. Then he said, in admitting people to university is universal standard. Anybody who qualifies will come in. But in Nigeria, it is localized. And we all know that. He says it's against best practice. He cited many poor regulations and things like that. But you see, if I will talk candidly about it, I will say those who want to see greener pastures, let them go. But government should fund the universities. Like I've always said, if I have my way, we'll have free university education at all over the country. But there are competing economic demands, and government resources are limited. So, piecemeal, but this government has promised that it is going to give the universities autonomy. To give them autonomy. How that autonomy can exist when they still rely on government funding is still an enigma to me. But I think at the proper time, they will sort it out. But essentially, amenities for lecturers to function with in the laboratory, in the schools, in their halls, in the residences. So it should be adequate. Government should be able, this government at least should be able to fund it, because it is funding the practices of senators and legislators. And we are all complaining about the cost of governance. The cost of governance should not be at the expense of the cost of maintenance of the university, because the university system is the way without for us to provide for our future. So when people are well educated, that the future can be rosy. You see, I will give an example. Like in China, the highest number of migrant students in the US are from China. You get me? They got American education, but now most of them have become professors. They've gone back, and they don't even now want to go to the US because they're targeting Asians there, and Trump at one time was COVID came in. So migration, intellectual migration, is not all that negative. You get me? And I don't have sympathy for LASU unless they put the house in order, learn to exist with the leadership in the university, so that our students can stay and graduate at their allotted time for their various courses. So
very well said. You mentioned that a non-negotiable gesture that you would like to see from this administration is, a provision of amenities for the universities. Welfare. Thank you. But are there also some immediate gestures that will demonstrate good faith to the universities that would probably significantly reduce the kind of migration that we're seeing in terms of greener pastures based on the realities of the economy and the situation on ground?
The only thing now is for government to honor its industrial relations obligations to LASU. Give them what they want, and let's see what happens thereafter. But if government still thinks it's a matter of negotiation, it's a matter of conflicting priorities and interests, there was always, government will always have a way of justifying the expenditure it wants to spend and those it does not want to spend. But as an act of magnanimity, public magnanimity, in the interest of our education and our future, we can sit them down. What do you want? Give them. And tell them, you don't go on strike the next 5 years, and let us see what happens.
5 years. I like that. That's a riot act.
Yes.
No, I'm not sure if you can legally do that, but let's talk about justifying government spending. Because, in the same report, Professor Akinwole lamented the fact that there are over 30 new universities that are being established by this administration. He's saying that cost, or even just a fraction of that cost, could very well be invested in the universities that already exist and are struggling. And just to buttress that point, we saw some commentary as well from the Labour Party's presidential candidate in the last election, Peter Obi, who was saying, we're seeing the introduction of student loans, but again, no investment in the public institutions themselves. So the measures that are being taken by government, are they going to get our public institutions back on track?
You read the budget, you know the measures being taken by government.
Yeah, and which I've just spelled out, and I'm saying, are they, given the picture that's been painted by ASU, and we put it aside the facts that are on the ground about the government's budget, it seems as though these interests don't have a meeting point, or am I missing it?
Well, I don't get your point, honestly.
Mr. Sobowale, you always say this when you don't want to answer my question.
Why would I not want to answer? I don't get it.
Let me break it down for
That's
you,
right?
The government has made a commitment to establish over 30 new universities. Could that budget not be used towards making sure that the universities that already exist function at a more efficient level?
Okay, I will answer it this way. That is a political decision. Establishing universities in Nigeria is a political decision. Each state wants to have university. If possible, each local government wants to have. And people don't think of cost when they do that. Some of them function well, because you do not know. Some universities function well. If it's still there, other universities are there who are well run, who function, because at the initial stage they have the infrastructure. But if you have a government that wants to put on the ground a university in any hinterland, you can't stop it. It's a political one. You can't scrap the ones existing. She has just asked me a question, one for all answer. I say, fulfill the demands of these people. It is an utopia, it's a very utopian something, but it could be done. Just, you have to be optimistic and enthusiastic about government policy until and unless it is not, government is not keeping its promises. But you have to give government benefit of doubt once it says something.
Very well said. Mr. Sobowale, when it comes to the irony, for lack of a better word at this time, when you spoke about the autonomy that was being given and the still reliance on government funding, what's the way forward regarding that aspect?
That is, how do I put it now? I almost like an oxymoron, independence and funding. They're almost opposite, but it has to be worked out. You see, the universities, I think what they are talking about is about governance. According to the university's constitution, the government is the university, the Senate. That the Senate should be left to manage the universities. But the Senate invariably in federal universities are appointed by government, the chancellor, pro-chancellor, and so on. So, see, if government has a stake, it must have some measure of control. You get me? And again, see, the universities have to be careful. What I'm saying now may be offensive to some people. Knowledge is not localized in any university nowadays. The internet has democratized knowledge. You can stay in your house and learn whatever you learn and acquire degrees. Do you get me? So don't need the ivory tower and immaculate brick and mortar structures to get people educated. Information technology is there. Now, the dangerous thing for the university is artificial intelligence. Because artificial intelligence, robots now write letters, they write judgments, they write cases for judges and side cases, although occasionally they make mistakes. But in functions where you have repetition and writing, artificial intelligence can do it. So many students, once electronic gadgets get cheaper, and they are getting cheaper and cheaper, and students have access to them and are educated through computer training and all that, there will not be need to be established in all these expensive tertiary institutions. People can learn from their houses. So the future is there. But the present, let ASU pipe down and let government do something for LASU. And like the utopian question you asked me now, for once, let government bring them to the table, satisfy them. Say for 5 years, you say it's not possible. How is it not possible? It's the government of the day. They do it through the Ministry of Education. If the lecturers have the genuine interest of their environment and their students in mind, let them pipe down a bit. You get me? But I will not stop anybody looking for newer pastures. If it's because they are acceptable, that's why people are taking them on. If they are not bad, they will send them back to their country. So we should be proud of them, but not at the expense of our collective welfare in all aspects of our economy.
And the local universities are greener pastures to some, because in the report there was also mention of the fact that bureaucracy is making it very difficult for those who want to come and lecture in Nigerian universities to get into the system.
Have to go to Abuja.
Exactly, before you can, so it's bureaucracy. But do you think it can actually, given what we've seen of how the ASU organizes itself over the years, do you think that it would be efficient for this recruitment process to be done at a state level or at a local level or even at an individual university level?
That it should be faster. That's it. That you don't need to go to Abuja. What they mean by Abuja is a Federal Universities Commission. Do you get me? That is the regulatory authority. What they are saying is that it's part of the autonomy, that the University Governing Council should be able to effectively recruit people at its own level and maybe then inform there. But you see, the NUC and government must have their own reasons. You get me? They must have their own reasons for pushing that of some sort of control. Maybe there have been some abuses which have been injurious to the welfare of the university system. So that can be sorted out in negotiations. Get me? Where everybody is willing. You see, where it is a sort of collective bargaining that makes it a win-win situation. You trust each other, everybody gains at the end of the day. Not a kill and go or do or die issue, but the universities will close down, and then lecturers will sit idle, and then students don't graduate on time. That is painful. That is injurious to the socio-economic health and future of this country.
I don't think anyone would have done justice to this like you would.
Sam.
Sam, yeah. Because we know you're passionate about education, free education specifically in Nigeria. Thank you so much, Arise News Analyst, Mr. Dayo Sobowale. We appreciate your time and insight as always.